Welcome back, my super charms, to another reading session with Christabel. This reading session is a continuation of our book titled The Village Meeting. This session will cover chapter 4 to chapter 8 of this book. Chapter 4: The Arrival of Baba Benga. As usual, let us pronounce some of the words you'll come across in this chapter. Baz, Baz, unwavering, unwavering, arduous, arduous, threaten, threaten, listen, listen. If this is your first time, please subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. Thanks for doing just that. Let's proceed to the reading of chapter 4, The Arrival of Baba Benga. The next morning, the village buzzed with activity as preparations were made for the village meeting. Akin and Yemi worked side by side, their minds focused on the task ahead. As the sun reached its zenith, signaling the start of the meeting, the villagers gathered in the meeting square, their faces grave with determination. Baba Benga arrived, his presence commanding the attention of all. He addressed the villagers, his voice strong and unwavering. "My fellow villagers," he began, "we stand at a crossroads. The government plans threaten our way of life, but we will not falter. We will stand united and protect our land." The villagers cheered, their spirits lifted by Baba Benga's words. They knew that their leader was a man of wisdom and strength, and they trusted in his guidance. As the meeting continued, Baba Benga outlined their plan of action. They would petition the government, presenting their case and asking for their rights to be respected. If that failed, they would be prepared to take further action to protect their land. The villagers listened intently, their resolve hardening with each word. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but they were prepared to face the challenges that may come their way. As the meeting drew to a close, Baba Benga thanked the villagers for their support. He reminded them that their strength lay in their unity and urged them to stand together in the face of adversity. As the sun set over Juma, the villagers dispersed, their hearts filled with determination. They knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but they also knew that as long as they stood united, they could overcome any obstacle that stood in their way. Would you like to know who were at the forefront of gathering the villagers ahead of their meeting with the government officials? What were the points of argument among the villagers ahead of their meeting? What wise advice did Elder Yemi give to Akin regarding his concerns? Let's find out in chapter 5. Chapter 5. Debate begins. These are some of the words you'll come across in this chapter. Concerns, concerns, resolution, resolution, petition, petition, reconsider, reconsider. Let's proceed to the reading of chapter 5. In the days that followed the village meeting, the villagers worked tirelessly to prepare their petition to the government. Akin, Yemi, and Baba Benga led the efforts, rallying their fellow villagers to join them in their cause. As the day of the meeting with the government officials drew near, tensions ran high in Ujuma. Some villagers argued for a more confrontational approach, urging the others to stand firm in their demands. Others advocated for diplomacy, suggesting that they seek a peaceful resolution to the conflicts. Akin listened to the arguments on both sides, torn between his desire to protect his land and his fear of the consequences of a confrontation. He sought out Yemi for guidance, hoping that the elder would help him find a path forward. Yemi listened patiently as Akin voiced his concerns. "My son," he said, "I understand your fears, but we must not let them cloud our judgment. We must approach this situation with a clear mind and a steady heart. Remember, our strength lies in our unity." Akin nodded, feeling reassured by Yemi's words. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that as long as they stood united, they could overcome any obstacle. The day of the meeting with the government officials arrived, and the villagers gathered in the meeting square, their faces set with determination. As they presented their petition to the government officials, Akin felt a sense of pride swell within him. He knew that they were fighting not just for themselves, but for the future generations of Ujuma. That piece of land is my only inheritance, and it's what I will hand over to my children. It's their own inheritance, says a villager from the crowd. Another villager from the crowd. That piece of land is the only fertile area for us to farm in this village. Without productive farming, there's no food for us, and that area of our land is the only fertile land we have for farming, cried another farmer from the crowd. I wonder how we're going to survive because that piece of land is our only source of income, says another farmer from the crowd. Others from the crowd, including widows and orphans, expressed their concerns to the officials. The government officials listened to their presentation, their faces unreadable. When they finally spoke, their words were measured and diplomatic. They promised to reconsider their plans and to take into account the villagers' concerns. As the meeting drew to a close, the villagers returned to Ujuma, their spirits lifted by the promise of a peaceful resolution. The people of Ujuma knew that the road ahead would still be difficult, but they also knew that as long as they stood united, they could face whatever challenges that they may encounter. Would you like to know what was Akin's next proposed plan to the villagers? Why were some villagers skeptical about Akin's proposed plan? Was Akin's proposed plan successful? Come with me to chapter 6. Chapter 6. Akin's proposal. As usual, let's pronounce these few words you'll come across in this chapter. Cooperative, cooperative. Proposal, proposal. Proposed, proposed. Resolution, resolution. Support, support. Skepticism, skepticism. Let's proceed to the reading of chapter 6. With the promise of a peaceful resolution from the government officials, the villagers of Ajuma breathed a collective sigh of relief. Gathering the villagers once again, Akin proposed a plan that would not only protect their land, but also benefit the community as a whole. His proposal involved setting up a cooperative farming initiative where the villagers would work together to cultivate the land and share the profits. The idea was met with mixed reactions. Some villagers were skeptical, fearing that it would be too much work for too little gain. Others, however, saw the potential for growth and prosperity. Akin was undeterred by the skepticism. He believed in the power of unity and cooperation, and he was determined to see his proposal through. With the support of Yemi, Babagbenga, and a few other key villagers, Akin began to lay the groundwork for the cooperative farming initiative. As days passed, the villagers worked tirelessly to prepare the land for planting. Akin led by example, working side by side with his fellow villagers to ensure the success of their venture. When the first harvest came, the villagers were amazed at the bounty they had reaped. The cooperative farming initiative had not only protected their land, but had also provided them with a sustainable source of income. The success of the initiative brought the villagers closer together, strengthening their bonds and reaffirming their belief in the power of unity. Akin, Yemi, and Babagbenga hailed as heroes, their names etched in the annals of Ajuma's history. As they celebrate their victory, Akin knew that their journey was far from over. The challenges they faced had only made them stronger, and he was confident that as long as they stood united, they could overcome anything that may come their way. What story did Elder Yemi relate to the villagers? What will be the moral lesson from the story? How will the villagers react to the story? Let's find out in Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Yemi's Tale. As usual, let's pronounce these few words you'll come across in this chapter. Bravery, bravery. Bustled. The T is silent. Bustled. Drought, drought. Let's proceed to the reading of Chapter 7. With the success of the cooperative farming initiative, the villagers of Ojomo felt a renewed sense of hope and unity. The fields were lush with crops, and the village bustled with activities as everyone worked together towards a common goal. One evening, as the villagers gathered around the communal fire, Yemi stood up to share a tale from the past. His voice was strong and clear as he began to weave a story of bravery and resilience. Long ago, Yemi began, there was a great drought that threatened to destroy our village. The crops withered and the animals grew weak. The villages were filled with fear, unsure of how they would survive. But in the face of adversity, they did not falter. They came together, pooling their resources and working tirelessly to find a solution. They dug deep wells, and through their hard work and determination, they were able to irrigate their fields and save their crops. The lesson of this tale is clear. Yemi continued. In times of hardship, we must stand united. Together, we can overcome any challenge that comes our way. The villagers listened intently, their eyes shining with admiration for their wise elder. They understood the importance of Yemi's words, and they vowed to always stand by each other's side, no matter the trials ahead. As the night wore on, the villagers danced and sang around the fire, celebrating their unity and strength. Akim, Yemi, and Baba Benga watched over them, their hearts full of pride. They knew that as long as the spirit of unity burned bright in Ojima, their village would prosper for generations to come. What will be Baba Benga's next proposal to the government? How will the villagers react to his proposal? Will his proposal lead to a peaceful solution to the land dispute with the government? Look out for the answers in Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Baba Benga's decision. As usual, let's pronounce these few words you'll come across in this chapter. Awe, awe, vigilance, vigilance, thrive, thrived, decision, decision. Let's proceed to the reading of chapter 8. The following day, Baba Benga called for another village meeting. The villagers gathered once again, curious to hear what their wise leader has to say. My fellow villagers, Baba Benga began, his voice commanding the attention of all. We have faced many challenges together, and we have emerged stronger because of it. But our work is not yet done. He went on to explain that while the cooperative farming initiative had been a success, there were still threats to their land and way of life. Baba Benga urged the villagers to remain vigilant and to continue working together to protect what was theirs. Baba Benga then made a decision that surprised everyone. He announced that the village would send a delegation to the government, not only to present their case, but also to offer a compromise. The villagers would be willing to share a portion of their land for the development projects, as long as their rights to the rest of the land were protected. The villagers listened in awe, amazed by Baba Benga's wisdom and foresight. They knew that his decision was not an easy one, but they trusted in his judgment. As days passed, preparations were made for the delegation's journey to the government's office. Akin, Yemi, and Baba Benga led the delegation, their hearts filled with determination. When they arrived, they were met by government officials who were impressed by the villagers' willingness to compromise. After much negotiation, a deal was struck. The government agreed to protect the villagers' rights to their land, and in return, the villagers would share a portion of the land for the development projects. The villagers returned to Ajuma victorious, their heads held high. They knew that their future was secure, thanks to the leadership of Baba Benga and the spirit of unity that thrived in their village. After the terms of agreement was accepted by the government, how will both parties work to actualize it? Who was assigned to ensure the implementation of the agreements? How will the villagers fare under the new settlement terms with the government? Let's find out in Chapter 9.